to having that ability to face those tough conversations early on in life, if I did that, I feel like I probably would have stayed with basketball, stayed with football, maybe stayed with soccer. I was not big on running, but yeah, I think that would have helped.
He is the PE teacher right now at Ida Rankin, although you've been at a few schools in Gaston County.
Yep.
Coach Corey, what's going on, sir?
Not much, just hanging out, trying to get caught up around my classroom, which isn't really too hard, but yeah, just looking forward to this.
All right, let's start with you as a young kid. What was sports like for you growing up?
Sports were a way for me and my dad to connect. Sports were something that it was time for me and him to go out and throw. Just it was a way for me to release my energy. Definitely was something that I didn't know was going to be so important in my life. But it was definitely something that I was striving to just be with my dad. My dad worked a lot. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She kind of sold antiques on eBay and all that stuff to kind of, stay busy. But my dad would work a lot of overtime, swing shifts and that. So anytime I could be with him, go outside and throw. My sister played volleyball, so we'd go out there and play volleyball. And sports were just, at that time, sports were just life for me. That and video games. It was actually a way, I'm sure, to release away from video games. But yeah, it was definitely, it was something that helped me more than I knew back then, because playing a lot of video games, I didn't have a lot of life experiences that at the time I realized that I would be using later on in life. Sports were just my way of life, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, and you brought up the life experience thing. Sports for sure definitely helps out with life experiences and gives you like that connection that you may not get, especially because kids right now, so many kids are stuck on video games, and it's just like, it is what it is. Did you play everything? Like, were you a kid that played everything, or did you gravitate towards one sport?
So when I was young, baseball, basketball, I helped my sister a lot with volleyball. Played 1 year of soccer, played 1 year of football. I just didn't enjoy how the coaches used me in that. And it was just kind of a one-way street when it comes to how they coached. So baseball was my main sport. Basketball was until middle school. And then after that, I mainly focused on baseball, which I wish I didn't. But yeah, it's that I tried to do anything active. I was outside a lot. So worked on cars when I was younger too with my dad. So I just tried to be active. And I think a lot of it was my parents just trying to get me away from video games. Like, we're going to sign you up for this and this and this, and just let's get going.
You mentioned that you didn't like the way the coaches used you. Do you think, like, if they had a conversation with you, or if their approach was different? Because like this is honestly like that comment right there is the whole point of this podcast. Like, I think there's so much that coaches do that doesn't get recognized, and it goes back to it's just always the focus of the wins and losses, but it's like, really, for me, it's like the connections. Mm-hmm. So like, do you think if something had been different, like, would you have continued playing soccer or maybe another sport that instead of focusing on baseball and basketball?
So I don't like to, and I teach all my baseball and softball players this, I don't like to blame per se. There was a lot of things that I didn't have, that I needed when it comes to, the social skill aspect, not feeling intimidated to go up to talk to the coach, being able to, present what I needed to present to them. Especially when I wasn't, like, I started playing, when I played football, it was my 8th grade year. And it wasn't like I didn't play all these years that all these other kids were playing. It was just I didn't hit my growth spurt. I was kind of shorter and a little chubby. So I was a lineman, and me playing baseball in my arm, I was like, I want to be able to throw. I want to be able to, potentially be a quarterback, but also I was super insecure. I was always trying to act a certain way instead of being okay with like, I'm not the best. And asking for help was a tough one for me. So I don't try to blame the coaches. Like looking at it now, like they had their way. What they were envisioning was, what they envisioned, but I should have pulled the coach aside after practice or earlier before practice started and talked to them, but I wasn't that kid. And I try to teach a lot of my kids social skills are so important, and it doesn't just mean in sports, but later on when you have a boss or you're working at a job and you're trying to get a pay raise, or maybe you have issues with a coworker, going up to them and talking to them, and just having that ability to face those tough conversations early on in life. If I did that, I feel like I probably would have stayed with basketball, stayed with football, maybe stayed with soccer. I was not big on running, but I think that would have helped. And my parents were always telling me, like, they're not going to go and talk to the coach. Like, you got to do it. And I think instead of me facing that, I just suppressed that and just try to act a certain way that wasn't, it didn't help me grow. I look at it now, and especially teaching the youth, it's just, I want them to grow. I want them to grow up to be, just great human beings. And that social skills, especially when you're sitting on, a phone or video games, I don't think that helped. Plus, I grew up in a very, very small town up in the mountains of Pennsylvania. It wasn't like I lived in a community or anything like that. I didn't have like a lot of friends that were really close by. So it was just, tight knit, and we had to drive 30, 40 minutes just to get anywhere. So it was more or less, I was kind of in my little box, and I was comfortable there. And the lack of social skills growing up, the ability to talk without confrontation, without raising a voice, stuff like that is something that I struggled with back then. So I don't blame the coaches. I just wish that I would have had the skills to talk to them and be like, hey, this is what I want. How can that work with your way of coaching? But
it's like you're kind of preaching like accountability too, which is like a big deal, because it's like you mentioned, like going on, like as you get an adult, you have to work in jobs. Like you have to be accountable for stuff. And like, you clearly are accountable. Like, yeah, you played a part in it too. Like, and that's kind of why, for the insecurity thing you mentioned, like, what's your approach now with the kids that you coach? Cause I know you coach baseball, or even the kids that you teach in PE every day. Like, how do you attack insecurities?
Man, try to address, like, maybe just outside of whatever the main topic that you might see, or you might notice if there is like maybe not a strength that they have in that area. Try to encourage and know that they're kids. You guys are kids. We're always learning. I tell them, like, I'm still learning how to be a PE teacher. I'm still learning how to be a coach. I'm going to be a father here shortly. So I'm still trying to learn. You got to be a student. You got to be okay with that. But also, like, sometimes reflecting is really important. Having some alone time to kind of breathe and, think of like, man, I didn't handle that right. I wish I did this instead of this, and trying to understand, like, all right, is it every time that I reflect and I'm looking at, I wish I did this. If I notice a norm, then I need to understand that might be the root cause of that insecurity. When it's coming to addressing kids, K-5, how you talk to them is so important. And a lot of the times, if I don't even realize that I came off a certain way, I might get an email from a parent and I'm like, I didn't mean that at all. Like, the whole point was to try to, understand, like, hey, this happened, and, let's kind of address it and try to move on. But also just trying to let them know it's okay to make mistakes. Like, mistakes are how we learn. Struggling is how we grow. It makes us appreciate the times that we're like really being successful in whatever it is that we're trying to do. But yeah, it's always hard from one perspective to try to address so many different perspectives from so many different families or backgrounds, or maybe like a quiet household and talking quiet compared to maybe a louder household, or I'm naturally loud as it is, but I don't try to have emotion in it. Like, one thing is, like, I don't try to associate yelling. Yelling is I feel like tying some emotion, frustration, whatever it is, I try to project my voice, and especially like I try to use music in my gym and so on, but I never want to blow a whistle to like, I don't know, just alert to everybody to look at that kid, which then makes it more of an insecurity because now it's like we're all now focused on that, but also trying to just show them that like I have high expectations for you and I'm here for you. You'll never see me sitting looking at this or on a Chromebook when we're in class. Like I want to observe and help teach in so many different avenues. And my wife's a counselor, so I always try to like, pick her brain. Like how can I help with this? Like I might see this and like next time, what can I do to better how I either approach the situation or how I talk to the kid or like, just trying to be a student, even though I'm a teacher or coach, like just try to never think I know it all because I don't.
So, oh yeah, well, yeah, and that's the problem is a lot of people think they know it all, and that's where the struggle is. So you mentioned how you talk to the kid, and what's funny is you said it a couple times. You have this weird perspective or interesting perspective where you teach K through 5.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you talk to kids all day, I'm going to assume changes every hour.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different for you? Because I teach 4th grade and I know what I can do with 4th graders. I know how I could talk to 4th graders, but going from kindergarten to 5th grade during the day has got to be kind of crazy.
I think so. One of the times I reflected and talked to my wife, and that is like I try to find a root goal. And I think integrity is a really big root goal for us to talk about when it comes to K through 5. And just understanding that, when nobody's watching, like your true character is going to come out based on the decisions you make. And those insecurities might start to make your decisions different. And I know like when I was younger, some of my insecurities, I would try to cheat in games. I would try, like, if nobody's watching, like, all right, yeah, and just try to boost myself up, even though it didn't help. So I try to, when I talk to them, it just depends on the situation, like I'm not perfect, but I also try to make sure that, if there's a situation that affects another kid in the classroom based on one student's choice, I try to talk to them like, hey, this kid's feeling this because of this choice. And is this choice, like when we're here, is that helping everybody grow? Is that helping something? Is that, the gap between somebody that has a mom and dad at home compared to somebody that, lives with grandma? That gap between their opportunities might be different. So in my class, you might see a huge change between the athleticism and so on compared to, XY kid. I try to get them to understand perspectives and try to, especially with the athletes, be like, how does your decision make you a better leader in the class? And integrity, I feel like, is a route that we can kind of branch off of. Because if you're trying to, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to make amazing choices every day, especially as a little kid. But just trying to help them through, like, hey, in that situation, you might have a temptation to do this, or, only think of yourself in that regard. But just to try to give them perspective, because thinking of me, like I didn't live in a massive community where I had a bunch of kids and I can hear and see all these different perspectives. It was just me, my sister, and my family. And it was like, that's my perspective. So that was why it was always hard to try to understand different people, because it was just me and my family. I understood that. So trying to get them in a group setting, and especially when more and more kids are in front of screens, it's hard for them to understand that perspective, but just trying to make good choices and think of others, and how you can use that to lead on to better choices later in life. It's kind of just stay calm, try not to, I even though I project my voice, just try not to show emotion in my face, even though I like show a lot of emotion. I try to like calmly talk to them. I try to just encourage and show them that, I'm here. Come talk to me, ask me questions, whatever it is. Just how they can be a better person in the world is so important in my class, because, winning is great, is awesome. Losing stinks, but, your character is really what is left after all of your athleticism phases, just kind of goes away. Your character is what's left. So, it's tough, but
Exactly.
Been doing it 13 years, been trying to
All right.
perfect the craft, even though I never will.
So let's go back to you playing baseball when you were younger and basketball. Was there a coach or maybe even a mentor? It doesn't have to be a coach that like stuck out to you and not necessarily kept you with baseball or basketball, but just kind of like that was the reason why you were like attracted to that sport and that guy or girl or whoever it was?
So it kind of sounds cliche, but my dad was my coach in the Little League, and he always had the main focus of fun. It didn't matter what the score was, didn't matter what happened, as long as you're being a good teammate and you're having fun, you'll grow to love the game. And then when you grow to love the game, you'll make your choices and you'll make your work ethic from there to kind of build off of that. He stopped coaching me later on when I, hit middle school age. But back when I was in Little League, even like during practices, like he would always tell the kids, if somebody hits the fence when we're hitting, we'll buy everybody ice cream. And that, we always loved that. And that I think just helped build so many kids to realize like we just have fun and we're together. We're all trying to go towards this goal, and it's not winning, it's ice cream. Let's go try to hit the fence. Like we're all encouraging everybody to hit the fence just so we all can get ice cream. It's kind of selfish in a way, but it was awesome. And it was selfless for my dad for him to do that. And it happened a couple of times and it was like the best. It was like such a core memory. But also after that, moving into middle school and my dad not coaching me, I think was probably the best thing because, I was always looking for his approval and I didn't want to tie. And I still struggled with this when I was in college playing. I didn't want to tie my, outcome to like how proud he was, which even though like those were my insecurities, I always wanted to make him proud. If I didn't do good, like I thought he wasn't proud of me. But he was also a man of very few words when it came to like emotions, and later on found out, it was just how he was raised with his father. And, he definitely sticks out. But in my later years, I worked at a baseball facility when I was 15, 16, going through all the way to 18. There was a mentor, his name is Dennis Smetting. He played at Kutztown, played at Cecil Community College, actually where I went to play JUCO, worked directly with him. He was an amazing person, still to this day is an amazing person, and just trying to grow softball and baseball players in northeastern Pennsylvania. Still to this day, I look at all this stuff and just his words of advice is inspiring for me to help my baseball and softball players, continue to grow. And he's definitely in the later years somebody that I definitely look up to.
So when you were in high school, let's say 9th, 10th grade year, what's the goal for you? Like what did you see yourself doing? Like was it baseball?
Baseball was it. Baseball was my love. Like I worked at a place called Frozen Ropes. It was about 35 minutes away from my house. And back when I was 15, my dad took me there. It just opened. And my dad talked to the guy and he's like, hey, is there anything that he can do around this place so he can get free cage time? And the guy's like, yeah, we have birthday parties coming up. And, if he wants to work those, he can come in anytime he wants and he can hit off the cage. Well, I did that for a while. And then the guy's like, hey, I'll actually hire you. And then you can do baseball lessons. Obviously you're in high school, so we don't want you teaching high school kids, but 8, 9, 10-year-olds, if you want to do some lessons here or there, that'd be good. I was getting paid like $17 an hour as a high schooler back then. I'm like, this is amazing. And that's where I met Dennis. So when that was happening, man, I was playing so much baseball. Everything was baseball. Work was baseball. And all I wanted to do was move on to the next phase in life, which was trying to play collegiate baseball. And just listening to Dennis and knowing like when I was in high school, I was throwing high 80s. And when I was getting to my junior year, I was in the 90s. And I was like, all right, like there's a good chance. And then I went to a UNC Greensboro showcase and I was picked out of 500 people to go walk the campus. And I was so scared and so insecure that I turned it down. And my parents were like, why did we do this? They were so frustrated with me. And I was just so scared. Like I came from this small, tiny little town and, UNC Greensboro's baseball fields in the middle of the city. And I was just like overwhelmed. And then I thought too, it was like, I want to kind of be in small town. And I would talk to Dennis after that. And he's like, hey man, Cecil College is, like it's off of 95 in between Baltimore and Philly, but it's in kind of a small town. It's very rural. And I was like, all right. So we went to, I think it was Rehoboth Beach for like sports at the beach. And I pitched that game, did really well. And that coach came up to me. He's like, hey man, like I want you to come see the field and see the school. And I was like, yeah, like you taught Dennis Smetting. And he's like, yeah, dude. And I was like, yeah, I work with him. Like, and he's like, you work with him? So it all kind of, worked out in a way. And that was always been the goal, is just play baseball anyway and stay in the sport. And that's true to this day.
So at what point when you're playing baseball now in college, do you realize that, all right, I know you're sticking with it and we'll continue that journey in a minute, but when do you realize that you're done playing it? Like
when college took over, again, video games, Modern Warfare and Call of Duty came out at the prime time. So after practice, the boys, all of us, like the ton of us would go and we'd play. So my work ethic I don't want to say it went down, but like, it's not like I was in the gym a ton in high school. It was always, I was just playing all the time. I was playing in 2-3 different leagues, just throwing all the time. And I think that is where in the moment I didn't know, but I was doing what I wanted to do. I want to like go to play baseball and, go to class and then come home and play some Call of Duty or whatever it is. And then just not throwing as much all the time, even though we had practice in that, like 91, 92, went to like 87, 88. And then my dad was retiring and my sister already lived in Hickory. And my parents were like, hey, we're going to be buying a house down there. And when I knew that, I was like, I want to be somewhere in North Carolina. So I think towards the end of my sophomore year at Cecil, my second year at Cecil, I told my coach, I was like, I just want to be in North Carolina, anywhere, just somewhere where I'm going to be close to my family. So when I ended up at Mars Hill, I ended up kind of realizing, where I was, and I really needed to have plan B. And even though I was all about baseball, plan B started to overcome baseball. And I think that really is where I started to switch gears and start thinking, all right, what do I want to do in my future? I want to be in sports. I want to be something athletic. I want to be moving. And I started to also think, like when I was at Mars Hill, I used to do lessons with 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Like that was always fun. They're innocent. They're fun to be around. You can help them. It's very rewarding when they get it, like how it lights up in their eyes when they get it. And it's like, yeah. I was like, man, maybe I can be a PE teacher. And I thought of like my high school baseball coach was my elementary PE teacher. And I was like, man, that was a good gig. Like we didn't always see eye to eye, but like, man, that would be fun. So that's when I kind of felt like I was switching gears. Also, I went JUCO because I thought I was going to get drafted. And after like sophomore year, I was like, nothing happened. So I better start thinking of what's next in life.
So you mentioned something interesting when you were talking about when you realized it didn't work for you. You talked about work ethic and you went how like everything kind of dropped off because you went to just playing video games. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, you're the best player on your high school team, right? But then you get to college. Every kid on that college team was the best player on their high school team, right? Mm-hmm. And I always try to tell my fourth graders that it's not always about how smart you are, like when it comes to school stuff. And it's not really about how athletic you are when it comes to sports. It's really about the hard work and the effort. Like if you don't put the effort in, yep, you're not going to get the results. So like, do you see that now? Like when you're coaching kids, like you look back on your time and like, you think like, all right, if I had put a little more effort in, it could have been different. My baseball career could have been different. I mean, does it mean you end up in the majors? Who knows? But you don't know because that effort wasn't there. So does that translate into you coaching?
So when I coach with my baseball and softball players, like that's where I try to instill as much as I can, but also in the guidelines of the time that they're with me, like their influence outside of that, because I do baseball and softball lessons on the side. I'm only there for an hour with them. Now I might be every week. So they get to hear me every week, but within the confines of like their day-to-day life and what, like, I don't know the pressures that they're getting put on by, maybe they're the same way as me when I was growing up of like, like maybe they're looking for that. I'm proud of you because you did well, instead of just being like your parents are there. They're proud of you no matter what. Or the fact that as video games and TikTok and so on, like get in their life, I don't know what their day-to-day routines are. And I try to talk to them about routines. Like routines are so important. and it's not just for, staying in sports, but routines are good for your mental health. Like when you start having like structure to your day, and you understand at this time, this is kind of what I do, that helps you with your happiness. You feel like you're completing more. I try to have a lot of open-ended questions with my ball players of like, hey, where are you from a 0 to 10 scale of like, you're super confident in the batter's box, or you're super confident on the mound. And if they're like, I'm a 7, I'm like, what can I do? Or what can I try to get the parents involved? What can we do to make you a 10? So I try to give it to them to let them be the one that is in control. Cause I feel like at the end of the day, like my demise was the fact that like my parents drove me everywhere. Like they gave me opportunity, but then when I was on my own, I didn't have that routine, that structure that was like within me to make it now on my own. I do now. Like I think it's just as you get older, you start realizing like, oh man, I really wish I did this earlier. But just trying to establishing routines, and those routines are, man, if I didn't make a ball team, like I had a softball player when she was in 6th grade, like she came to me for a year, and she, had her own struggles, but then she started doing really good, and she started to build a lot of confidence, but then she didn't make the team. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, listen, like, we can use that as drive. We can, like, I believe in you. Like, I believe that you're going to be super successful in this game. You're super young, and that coach might not see you there. You're a very quiet kid. Maybe at tryouts, like they're looking for somebody that looks confident. So just trying to like put it in their plate, but also ask them like, hey, what can we do to make you feel that this is achievable, either by giving you opportunities by going outside and throwing, or more positive praise. Some kids, like that girl, I asked her, I was like, how can I be better? Like, what do you respond to? And she's like, I respond to yelling. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, if you want me to, like, I'll be like, come on, let's go. But at the same time, yelling also, I feel like that emotion of having like, I'm frustrated or whatever. Like, I don't want you to ever associate that with a coach. Like, they're going to be frustrated with you, but at the end of the day, like, you're playing for your team. Your coach is there for you. Like, they shouldn't be frustrated at you. They should be maybe even frustrated about their lack of preparation and practice that now put you in that situation. Or maybe they can use that failure that you had to build off of practice. All right, our next practice, we saw this is what we're working on, y'all. So it's, man, it's always tough. It's like a puzzle with every kid, like how you can try to incorporate that work ethic, that routine based, like build a routine that makes you successful, but also some kids peak at different ages too. So, I mean, I got some kids that were studs in, 6th, 5th, 6th grade. They get older and everybody else is like now towering over them. It's like, hey, listen, we have new challenges. All right. So maybe we need to start eating more, or get in the gym, or do something like that. So, man, I take a lot of time trying to think. Like, it definitely stews in me. And I just try to give them my own experiences without ruining how unique they are. Like, their perspective is so different than mine. And I'm just trying to let them be in control. So when they're in control, they feel like they are the ones that are making their career successful. And so, yeah, sorry, I just kind of ramble sometimes, but it just,
no, you're good.
Yeah, every kid is so different. And we have to know that too. And so I feel like social skills are so important. Tell me what I can do to help you. And that's definitely what I teach in my class, that and manners. When you say please and thank you, or you say excuse me, like, you at least are showing that other people are there, and therefore you have some like understanding of other perspectives instead of just you. So
at what point did you decide, all right, you're going to become a teacher?
It was, so when I went to Mars Hill, it was my junior year. I started taking classes for sports management. And then I was like, I got to take some business classes. I don't know about this, but I still want to be involved with kids, and just like mainly the sport, stay active. That's me. And then at that moment, I was like, man, I used to do lessons. This was fun. This is amazing. I just know that I'm going to be a young kid coming out of college. I don't want to be in high school. I don't want to be in middle school. I want to kind of go back to what I've experienced. And I experienced, seeing that joy in the little kids. The little kids they're so innocent. They're so fun. They so quirky. And when they finally get it, it's man, it's so rewarding.
How do you think sports enhances kids academically? Like, where do you see that translation?
Motivation. For me, I know that I didn't make exactly the greatest choices, and sometimes I didn't put a lot of effort into academics where I should have early on, and hanging that over my head of being like, hey, listen, you're not going to be able to play. You're going to be like, I think that helped because it was that reward. Like, I loved playing baseball. Like, when you have that love that can kind of be used to make you and motivate you to do things you don't want to do, that's kind of what we do in the world. Yep. It's not just sports. I mean, it could be like money. All right. Like, yep. You like money. I like freedom. I like having XYZ toy, like those are like manipulators to kind of coerce you to be like, hey, listen, this is what you have to do, or we get to take it away. And that's where I also feel like some kids don't have that. They don't even have that because they might not have mom or dad or maybe even grandma signing them up for rec basketball or baseball or softball. And it's like, all right, so you don't even have really much. You might have like a TV that you're watching yep. shows on, or you have a tablet, so sports definitely pushed me. I don't want to say to do the minimum, but it definitely pushed me past what I normally would have done if I didn't have it.
Is there something that you do in your classroom, like in your PE classroom, that you think that other teachers should probably incorporate that you just find success with, and you think that, yeah, it's a sports thing, or it's just, it's connected with sports, but it carries over to life?
Man, I try to incorporate as much fun as I can and acknowledging your successes. So like even in my class, like right behind me, and there's a reason why I did this, because like these kids are kindergarten through fifth graders. And I want them to know, like, hey, when you're putting in that work, like it's super rewarding, but other kids should see the fact that how much work you put in. So like I have them, and this goes towards like field day points in my class. Like I try to make it like a huge thing that we're all trying to achieve together. And if they bring in a picture of them playing an activity after school, so it could be, whatever sport, from like horseback riding to I even have like a girl over there that rides MX dirt bikes back then. Like I want them to see that recognition that school is awesome. Like I want you to enjoy your education, because as you start to grow and learn, you'll start gaining a way more confidence if you feel like, wow, I kind of know this stuff. And therefore, when people start recognizing me, it just kind of builds and it makes you kind of work a little bit harder. So I try to recognize as many kids that it stinks though, because some kids don't have these opportunities. And, I try to tell them like, hey, listen, eventually you will. Like maybe you'll be able to play for the middle school when you get over there, but just understand like you might have to do other things to help yourself. And I try to tell my fifth graders this. I'm like, don't get on Instagram. You shouldn't have an Instagram. But if your parents do, go in the search and have your parents type in whatever sport you're working on, whatever it is, whatever you want to play, and type in drills after that. So it could be volleyball. Okay, volleyball drills on Instagram. And then you have like a plethora of videos from facilities to pro athletes, and they explain what they're trying to do. And I'm like, you have so much to your fingertips that can help you reach your goals. You just have to find it. So I try to tell my kids that as much as possible, that, like I am so proud of everything that they do. I'm proud of every accomplishment that they have. And having like something concrete where it's like, I tell from back in 2015, 2016, I'm like, these are going to stay up until I retire. So think of all the little kids that are going to be inspired by seeing you or whatever. And maybe one of you make pro one day. And then all of a sudden we got that, and I'd be like, hey, they were in your shoes. They were in the same spot. But I try to just make it fun too. So like I have my field day points board. So that's based off of participation, behavior, encouragement, so on and so forth. So if they bring like a picture, it goes towards that. Like I showed you before, we have the flag. So I try to like make it like a team role. Like my class is always about, you're on a team. I try to build skills from K2 that are towards some skill in a sport. So it could be basketball. I try to keep the difference between like a kid that plays AAU basketball and a kid that never plays. I try to take the hardest part out of it. So like dribbling for basketball, I'll teach them dribbling. but we're not going to play a game where like Johnny that plays AAU is just running circles around little Susie.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So we do like ultimate basketball. So it's like ultimate frisbee. You can't move, you have the ball, and you have to rely on your teammates to move down the court. So I try to like amp up and run my class almost like a mini rec system, but I try to get them in those team environments where they have to rely on their teammates. Not a team environment where, Big John is amazing at this and he just scores 40 points and little Susie has 0. Like I want everybody to have an equal opportunity here because, it's public education. Everybody should have a level playing field to some extent, and I still want the kid that plays AAU to still have success, shooting, whatever it is. But I also don't want little Susie to feel so defeated because she can't do the basics of dribbling.
Yep.
So, or even like with volleyball, we use beach balls and we teach them the scoring. We teach them how to rotate. We teach them how to serve. But, anybody for the most part can hit a beach ball up in the air and it floats and it takes its time as it comes down, which means then little Susie gets a chance to finally get her little success. And then she feels everybody cheers for her. And then it's like, so that just the recognition that sometimes they need, because in the classroom, I can't even imagine teaching just 4th grade and teaching English and teaching math.
Yeah.
Like those recognitions I can feel like are probably be so hard. I try to do like little student spotlights too. Like, hey, what was something that happened that was amazing that you felt so good? And like, it's not like show and tell, but it's like talk and tell. Like that, tell us about something that happened. Just so they feel special because they're so unique. Every kid has so many different lives than everybody else. You're just trying to spotlight whatever their strengths are, whatever they feel good about, even if it's video games. Like we had parent-teacher conference yesterday. Not many people come down here, which about 8 years ago, I started bringing my Nintendo Switch down here and I would be like, hey, come on down, play Mario Kart. We'll play Mario Kart. You can play against me. And what I did is then was like, how can I lead up to this in the classroom? So we do Mario Kart tag the week of. So it's like you're on scooters, you have a pool noodle that's in the handle, and you have a balloon that's slid into the top. It got little slits in it. It slid to the top, and the taggers try to hit the balloon off like battle balloons in Mario Kart. And I just try to amp it up, but also to try to get the parents to come down here because maybe the parent-teacher conference didn't go well. You come down here, I'm going to talk about how amazing you are as a student, as an individual. And guess what? You try to beat the champ. And a kid beat me yesterday. He was so pumped. I talked so much smack to him over the past couple of years. I'm like, hey, it might be the year. Might be, but you're going to have to earn it, dude. And he finally did. He was so excited. But yeah, just trying to, I don't know, just try to have fun. Life's too short. We got to have fun.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's like, I try to incorporate like just sports stuff and like even mottos into my classroom and everything to just, cause I think you can't be serious all the time. All right, let's do a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Favorite sports movie?
Sports movie, Sandlot.
Oh, good one. That's a good one.
Yep.
Motivational quote or something that you live by?
Athleticism fades, character does not.
Oh, nice. If you could coach any professional sports team, what would it be and why? Phillies.
Man, I love the Phillies. We had the AAA back in the day, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Red Barons. We'd go to the games. They'd have little tryouts. That's how they're like, hey, you need to go JUCO. Like, this is what you need to do. So just the Phillies. And my dad loves Phillies. So I think that would be so cool. I wish I got drafted just so I could see the expression on my dad's face.
Who's the most inspiring athlete in your opinion?
Ooh, I was always a big Curt Schilling fan.
Okay. Why Curt Schilling?
Before politics got involved, just his tenacity of his hard work and, like the bloody sock and all that other stuff, like just always, I don't know, I gravitated towards him.
When you were in high school and even playing JUCO, did you have any pregame rituals?
Not really, because I went in my head. I would just try to stay busy. I would just try to, whatever I could do to stay busy so I wouldn't overthink it, because I overthink a lot. I think too deeply in a lot of stuff. And
then was there ever a post-game snack for you? Like, was there something or a meal like you knew, right, no matter win or loss, this is what I'm having?
100% Gatorade, like a blue Gatorade. And then, man, I didn't we'd just go to the cafeteria and just eat whatever I had an opportunity to eat. Just go and do it. Sometimes we go to the Tasty Freeze, which was like the little ice cream place in our town back in high school. I always loved when we did that. It was always just my mom, my dad, me, or my sister, and we just go there. So that was always awesome, but it wasn't always the same.
So what advice do you have for teachers that are going into education, or just even coaches? Like, what would you tell them? Like, this is what you should do, or this will help you?
You're not going to be perfect. Your lesson plans are never going to be perfect in the classroom. Understand that every kid that's coming in is trying their best, regardless of what it looks like. Their parents have tried to do the best that they possibly can to get the kid in that situation. And you might think otherwise, but you just have to work with what you have, and you're going to struggle. Days are going to be tough, but those moments that it clicks is going to be so rewarding that is going to keep you in it if that's your calling. Because again, they say teaching is a calling, and you have to sometimes step away, because just like the kids don't have good days, you're not going to have a good day. And you're going to have to realize inside of you that I don't like the way that this is going. I need to step away and either get a breath or whatever it is, have routines that you can do, as much as I don't have like a food routine after a game or something like that. Yep. The routines of recognizing when you're not okay, of like what had just happened, or you reflect afterwards to try to learn off of it. Just know to ask for help. Don't act like you know it all. Go into it with, hey, you've been here for a long time. What has worked for you? And be an open ear. Don't be closed. Even if you don't think you like the person, whatever it is, just open your ears and listen, because we're all not that smart. We gotta continue to learn. We're all students, no matter how old you are. You're always trying to grow. You're always trying to learn.
All right. So your goal coming out of high school was to play college baseball and then obviously make it to the pros. Mm-hmm. What's your goal now?
Man, retire and financially be good. And now we're having our first baby, and probably our only baby, because we're getting up there in age on May 28th. So man,
congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I don't really know right now. Before all of this, like my wife didn't want to have children. I had a student last year that there was some stuff that was going on with the family, and I taught him since kindergarten and loved the kid, and somehow he came into our life and he stayed with us at the tail end of the year, and just caring for him changed my wife's mind. And he's in a loving place now with his family, with his grandmother and that, and still reaches out. It's awesome. So that right there was a changing point, where now it's still like, I'm still in the transition stage of being like, I was only had to worry about me and my wife and my dogs. Now it's like, all right, everything's going to change. Everybody's telling me it's going to change. It's all going to be new. It's all going to be, but now it's just, I want to be in a position where even with a child, I never have to worry about money, because there were some times with my dad just working, like I didn't want any arguments or anything like that, because I recognized sometimes when money was tight. I want to now just make sure that my child is happy, healthy, and they're going to have insecurities, but just try to be an open book to try to be like, hey, listen, I just want you to be successful. So I guess that is now my main goal, is just make sure my child is going to be as set up as they can.